Good evening, everybody. I'm happy to see you at this late hour here at our side event. On behalf of the Liechtenstein government, I would welcome you to our side event, which today brings together the most important environmental agreement we have at the time in international law, and one of the most promising technologies in the IT world. The event raises the question, how could the blockchain technology contribute to the Paris Agreement implementation? In order to answer that question explicitly, we designed the Carbon BC project. And its aim is exactly to give an answer on that question. So let me explain a little bit about my background and through my experience how I see how this technology might contribute to the implementation of the Paris Agreement. I started working in Liechtenstein in 2008, in 2006 actually, and one of my tasks was to make the country eligible under the Kyoto Protocol. That included like tasks, reporting obligations, like in greenhouse gas inventories, national communications, BNL reports. But that was not all. Moreover, we had corresponding activities with in-country reviews, assigned amount units, the purchase of certified emission reductions, fast start and long-term finance for mitigation and adaptation, a long list of national policies in order to meet our Kyoto compliance. So these obligations are a challenge for every country. But it is special for a small country like Liechtenstein with limited administrative capacities. So you can imagine that we were very keen, our team is 2 persons, that we were very keen in identifying ways to improve efficiency to that regard. When Nick told me in November 2016 in Marrakesh about the blockchain technology, he immediately got my attention. I was interested because I thought this could be a way of improving our reporting system, like some sort of a reporting software. So I took a deeper look into the technology and the approach and how does it work. This approach that combines distributed ledger technology and encrypted data transfer. I know it sounds really complicated. It is complicated, but if you take a look and you approach that issue with a certain logic, it makes sense. And there's a moment when it makes click, and then you realize it is much more than just reporting. So I started reading books, I started reading articles, I attended seminars, and I got more and more interested. Just so big. So I began to listen to online podcasts, looked into cryptocurrencies, and studied white papers of new business models. And then I realized that goes beyond reporting. So its value for the Paris Agreement was still to be discovered. I'm now convinced, today I'm convinced that the Paris Agreement and the blockchain technology might indeed state a wonderful match. Not only from the perspective of a small country, not only from the Liechtenstein perspective, but actually from almost every perspective. I think if applied correctly, this technology may serve, or may change the way we look at greenhouse gas inventories, the way we make use of greenhouse gas inventories. It can increase the trust and transparency in international corporations, for example in markets, in non-markets, or in climate finance for mitigation and adaptation. And it contributes also to, or it provides a complete new opportunity for engagement and accessibility of stakeholders, of non-state actors and state actors. So, as there are so many applications available, this cannot be a one-man show, that was for sure. So it is necessary to join forces as soon as possible. Carbon BC considers these aspects, and we aim at the participation of many organizations whose experience is unique. We need to learn much more about this technology and what it means with regard to the enhancement of climate action. So Carbon BC is intended to serve as a platform to exchange information, capacities and experiences on the blockchain-based applications linked to the combat against climate change. So having said that, I would like to give the floor to our guests, because the aim of our event is to explain in what fields this technology may help us to implement the Paris Agreement. Since there are a couple of people sitting on this table, so let me introduce you to our guests. This is Nick Beglinger, the CEO of the non-profit organization Cleantech 21. Next to him is Jörg Füssler, managing partner at Infras. Stefan Klauser, project leader at Digital Society at ETH Zurich. Alexander Geller-Paris, associate program officer within the SDM team at the UNFCCC Secretariat. And Miroslav Polzer, director of the International Association for the Advancement of Innovative Approaches to Global Challenges. Before I give the floor to Nick to jump into our project, let me just hint you that we have provided a small apéro with drinks and sandwiches after the event. I would really appreciate and grateful to have a quick chat with every one of you, and I now wish us a very interesting event. Thank you. Nick, please.
Thank you very much, Sven. Good evening, everyone. I'm delighted to be here and give you a quick overview of what Carbon Blockchain, Carbon BC project is all about. And we set it up this way that we have quite a bit of time for questions that you may have afterwards, so we can get into some detail then. If you don't mind keeping your questions, because we're going to run through the presentations and collect them all at the end. So Carbon Blockchain, Carbon BC stands for Blockchain Brought to the World of Climate. And Sven told you already how it all started. It started here in the hallways of Marrakesh at COP22. Background is quite simple. Before setting up a foundation in Zurich about 10 years ago, I had a background in software, and I've been looking at blockchain technology for quite some time with lots of interest. I was clearly in the climate world, but I had software in my past world, so I was a bit receptive to what was going on, and I noticed there's lots going on concerning blockchain. I asked my team to find out what UN is doing concerning climate change and blockchain, and they came back to me and said they couldn't find anything. I told them it cannot be, check it again, and the result was the same. So we decided to make a project out of it and have that as one of two main things I was talking about in Marrakesh last November. Luckily, I was a proud member of the Liechtenstein delegation, so my first contact was actually with Sven, and it was a very positive one. I had many others where people didn't know anything about this. They were very skeptical about it, and it was quite difficult at the beginning, quite frankly. But I think we're in a period where this is all changing now. And even during the last 6 months where we were working at this on a more concerted basis, it was quite astonishing how many activities already start to emerge. So if you look, for example, next week we have in Barcelona the Innovative Climate Conference, and there already there's quite a prominent place for blockchain. There's a keynote speech, and there's a specific side event on it as well. So I think we're onto something interesting, and let's look at how we go about it. So the key objective of the project is plain and simple. We want to enhance climate action first and foremost, and do this by helping the implementation of the Paris Agreement. This is what it's all about. That's at the core of why we think these two things need to be put together. This is not another way of doing it. Yes, it is another way of doing it, but it is another way, a lot more efficient way, and in many aspects potentially a better way of doing many of the things on a technical basis, putting them into action basis. It's a technology, so it's not the rules. The rules stay the same. We would like to use that technology to make sure the rules that are set are implemented in the right way. That's carbon blockchain. Now, let's look at blockchain very briefly. And we're not going to have a sort of a blockchain session here. I encourage you to have your blockchain sessions wherever you are, like Sven had his and I had mine. There is this moment where it clicks, and it's a great moment because then it clicks a lot of time afterwards again. So look forward for that click. The blockchain as an expression must first and foremost be differentiated from something that it's often confused with, and that's Bitcoin. Bitcoin is one application of the blockchain technology. It's an application, a cryptocurrency. It's a cryptocurrency that's still very much developing, and it's probably going to continue to develop for quite a bit. But besides the application on Bitcoin, there are many, many other applications of the blockchain technology that underlines Bitcoin. So, I won't bug you with too many figures, but right now you have at least 2 of 3 banks looking at blockchain for the financial market. You have more and more firms looking at it in the energy field. You have people tracking diamond with blockchain, and you have things like poverty alleviation addressed with blockchain as well, for example, because you can do microtransactions in a very efficient way and include people in the financial system. So it's way more than blockchain, than Bitcoin. Fundamentally, it's a distributed ledger technology, and what it means, I'll get back to in a second. But just that you know, we're not the only ones thinking that is very attractive. You may have seen The Economist's cover picture of the trust machine talking about blockchain, and you may have also noted that organizations such as the World Economic Forum list that technology as one of 5 most important technologies for the next 2 centuries, for the next 2 decades, I beg your pardon. So this is really getting a lot of attention, and we think it's correct why it should get so much attention. Now, instead of me trying to explain you what exactly blockchain is, I have the input of showing this quick 30-second clip by the
Instead of sending a lot of information through a few servers, blockchain uses thousands of personal computers on the internet. All transactions are copied and cross-checked between every computer in a system-wide accounting book called the ledger, which becomes very safe at scale. Blockchain doesn't just allow us to create safe money online, it lets us protect any piece of digital information. This could be online identity cards, voter ballots, contracts, and many other legal instruments, bringing bureaucracy into the 21st century.
I told you it was a short one. Yeah, everything clear. How do we go back to the there we go. So, what we heard in the short video by MIT is that blockchain is essentially from going in the old world a centralized system where you have a trusted party.
We're going to talk about blockchain.
But don't close
The
it,
reason we
the
are
web
going to
stream
talk
is running on it.
Yes,
is
I agree.
that we need to create common language across business and technology about this
Here it is.
Albert Einstein.
This is another guy explaining blockchain. There are plenty right now. Oh, the net. Down again. Okay. So, sorry about that. So, the old world is a centralized world where parties that want to transact with each other need a clearinghouse in the middle, a trusted clearinghouse, if you want, a central notary. In the new blockchain type world, the database is not central, but it's distributed, hence the expression distributed ledger technology. What it essentially means is that parties who don't know each other can transact with each other in a trusted environment. And it means that no central party is responsible, but rather the rules are in the code and shared among everybody. If you look at this through a UNFCCC eye, if you want, you can still stay very much with this decentralized system, but you can, if you interact with each other on a certain subject, such as climate, or registries, or whatever detail you want to get in, agree on a common set of rules. and then have a system that is a trusted system out in the net without a central party responsible. And if you think of that, that fits pretty well with the kind of environment we have in a UN context, where nobody is centrally in charge, but everybody has to work together. We can't go into the details of how many different things one can do with this, but I'd like to share a few select lessons learned from our work on this subject already. If we start in the lower part of the slide, we have a very interesting aspect that blockchain is decentral and fair. I've just talked about that. Blockchain is also very secure, because rather than having one point that could be hacked, the actual information is distributed among many, many peers, and that makes the system a lot more safe. Blockchain also is irrefutable in the sense that it takes timestamps and then adds these to each other, hence the word chain, creates a chain of those, and those are statuses that you can't change anymore. So it gives a clear track, an irrefutable track of what's happening. And that's where the trust element comes in. If you think of a system where parties can interact without knowing each other, that obviously leads to transparency, huge transparency advantages, which in turn lead to huge advantages concerning stakeholder integration. So if you only remember two words concerning blockchain and climate, it's transparency and it's enhanced transparency that can lead to stakeholder integration. If we move to the upper part of the slide, a few lessons learned. If you think about blockchain solution, or in fact any type of IT solutions, always think about the interface between the physical real world and the digital world. The better that interface can be designed, the less human error, for example, there is, the better a solution will work. So symbolically you have a smart meter on the left side, which is a very good way of starting to integrate information in a system, because it's a smart meter that does its job and neutrally provides a set of information that you can then process onwards. Another key element of blockchain, which we cannot go into right now, is that with it you can create what you call smart contracts. And smart contracts are exactly what the term says. They're contracts where the code actually defines the content of the contract, making it self-executable if something happens. So you compare two pictures, let's think about forests, you find there is a difference. If there is a difference, you program the system such that a payment is executed based on the difference evaluated between two statuses. And if you have smart contracts, you can do very dynamic things, not just in the payment area, but including the payment area. Last point, when it comes to digital interaction, the identification of the stakeholders involved, as well as the issues involved, is very key. So part of what we're doing is to try to find a system where emissions, for example, can be uniquely identified using blockchain, so that a double counting problem, for example, could be avoided. Before I conclude my overview, I'd like to give you a quick overview in the true sense. You have our internal planning slide viewable. After our Marrakesh interaction, we decided that the subject includes, in fact, a lot of potential, and therefore we've organized 3 workshops in the period December to March this year. And the results of these 3 workshops has been the research agenda, which Jörg is going to go into in a second. Carbon blockchain has 3 distinct tiers, and they all run in parallel. The not tiers, we call them tracks. Track number 1 is the basic research track. As part of this, we'd like to look at some fundamental issues, see what's going on there, and provide that data to the community so that on that basis others can continue to innovate. Track 2 includes use cases, and use cases are basically simply specific examples of how blockchain could be applied in the world of climate. In a second we'll hear more about that from Stefan. And the last track is called Innovation Callout, because if there's one thing that happens when you put your head together on blockchain and climate, is that you arrive at so many potential applications that you realize that the brains at the table will not be sufficient to do it all. So from the start we decided that we have a research consortium together right now, but that's only the basis. And from that basis on, we want to interact with the community and interact with all those who want to contribute in this field. So that's the innovation call-out. In terms of structure, we try to stick to the COPs and communicate progress during the COPs and pre-COPs. So our first main deadline is COP23 here again in Bonn, and then we'll basically do the same program 2018 in order to make sure during these important times we're doing this innovation work in parallel. So, if you allow me to quickly conclude, I think number one, the potential is pretty clear. Blockchain fits to the UN world. Blockchain is a high potential technology in general, and we could really make things, very attractive things with it for climate. The consensus mechanism that is underlying to many of the issues we're dealing with as part of the rules on the implementation of Paris, but also in other areas, is key. And blockchain offers ways to agree among parties where nobody is centrally in charge. And I think that's fundamental to the potential when we look at it in the climate world. The main point, I said it before, is transparency. We can increase transparency of processes, we can share information in a secure way, and that allows us to integrate stakeholders, and that allows us in turn to accelerate climate action. And I said it, and I would like to say it again, we would like to make an innovation ecosystem here. We don't want to do this alone. One of the reasons we do this event is to reach out to the community and tell to everybody, if you want to interact with us, please do. So with that, I would like to hand over to Jörg, who will tell you more about track 1.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jörg Füsser from Infos, and I will talk about the first track of this project, so track 1, which is about the research agenda. Infos is doing the research management for this new project, and I'm very happy that this is now started. I will go into an overview of the research that is planned and try again from a bit different perspective to put the Paris Agreement's need aside to the potential of blockchain technology, look into the research questions, and also explain a bit the concept for partners and interactions. Just 2 words on Infos. Infos is a Swiss-based consultancy and research company, and we work in different areas, including energy, environment, and climate change. Now, the project approach and structure. So we have these three tracks. Stefan will later talk about track 1, track 2. I will talk about track 1. This is the background research. This should provide the research basis that later then can feed also into the use cases, and we will also then try to synthesize information from use cases. And the objectives include, in the first step, a comprehensive mapping of the different, let's call it, information flows or other needs of the implementation of the Paris Agreement. Once we have that map, we look to explore opportunities and risks of the blockchain technology, and we identify the potential of blockchains within the context of implementing the Paris Agreement. And as I said, we have that interaction with the other tracks. Now let's look at these two things. They are, of course, rather different, but I think there is a lot of synergies between these two worlds. So on the left-hand side, we have a few points that describe the needs of the Paris Agreement. I think transparency, Article 13, is really a key pillar of the Paris Agreement, and probably getting that right will be a key to the successful implementation of the whole system. The Paris Agreement fosters bottom-up, decentralized approaches in climate finance, in markets, and so on. And it puts an important role on measuring, accounting, tracking, and reporting of greenhouse gas emissions, of actions, of payments, and so on. It has a whole process of exchange of information, of reporting, and review and stock taking that is basically a lot about sharing information and providing transparent information, consistent information, and so on. And it also puts an important role on the private sector, because as we know, the overall target of the Paris Agreement can only be met with a strong leverage by the private sector. Of course, there are also many risks. The lack in ambition levels and transparency may be the top two on that list, but this depends on your perspective. Now, on the side of blockchain technology, what has it potentially to offer? I think it's important to see that also as the Paris Agreement is in development, also the blockchain technology is evolving. We have things like Bitcoin, but the technology is changing as we speak, and there are many new innovations done day by day. But what it offers, or what it can offer, is decentralized notary, also for smaller systems, accessibility, and distributed systems. It brings a trust to peer-to-peer interactions, so potentially also actors that don't have a bank account can participate in these systems. It may bring increased transparency. The permanent ledger assures to a certain extent that you cannot simply change this database as you want. It is very difficult to actually change entries there. But there are also quite some risks with blockchain technology. As I said, now it is still mostly in a pilot demonstration phase, so this is not yet a major technology. It is complex generally, and you need a bit of know-how to understand even the key concept. Some existing applications have a very large power consumption, so there are, for instance, these huge data warehouses and computer farms in China for the Bitcoin application, which consume a lot of power. And of course, an important question is it only a hype? Everybody is doing blockchain this, blockchain that. I think no, but of course there's always a certain risk if something blows up that much in the media. Here we made a first map of what we could tackle in this research effort. It starts, say, more with the more classical areas such as greenhouse gas inventories of countries, indices. They could be mapped into blockchain systems. also this is say the national level, but you could also have on a company, corporate level, you have also greenhouse gas inventories, you have ETSs, you have footprinting, also company targets, ESG uses. So there is a whole area of application also on, be it on the corporate or on the national level there. Then we have different instruments for climate change mitigation, including markets under Article 6, Article 6.2, 6.4, where also transparency and trust is very important. And we have voluntary market where this can play a role, emission trading schemes, clubs, national other market instruments, and of course we have the whole world of the airlines with the ICAO COSIA instrument. Also instruments such as carbon taxes and levies, carbon pricing, carbon asset reserve instrument to link different emission trading schemes could be looked at, and also the research can also go into instruments such as feed-in tariffs, regs, and so on, which can also be linked to mitigation action within countries or within companies. The basis of all this, and this is this light blue L, is carbon accounting, transparency, and reporting as required by the Paris Agreement. Then another area with certain links, of course, is the whole area of climate finance in climate change mitigation, but also adaptation. So adaptation should also be a research topic here, and here also we hope to systematically investigate if there is a role for blockchain to play to improve and accelerate climate action. The research steps, very simple. As I said before, first we want to make a comprehensive mapping of that architecture of respective climate action schemes. So what kind of information flows are there, what kind of transactions are needed for the systems now, but also for a post-2020 world. Of course, this is a lot of this is still in development, but we will try to make first guesses how that world could look like. From that, we derive the needs of that system for the transfer of information and other needs to support climate action, and then based on these needs for the Paris agreements, we look into blockchain technologies and check where could that play a role, and how and which kind of technology could contribute to new approaches and solutions. So we have then, like many or hopefully many areas that we identify that have a high potential for a success of that new blockchain technology. And the last step is then to look at the whole thing, at the how the different elements then can optimally work together to improve the Paris Agreement implementation. With these slides, I would like to highlight the importance of the interaction with partners of this project. And first, we will have partner countries who are also in the project committee that steers the whole research effort. And our idea is that they should be part of this research process, also provide inputs, also questions, ideas, from their point of view, from their experiences also in implementing the Paris Agreement, participate in workshop, review research outputs, and so on. Other very important partner will be selected institutions such as the UNFCCC, other international finance institutions, etc. The research will be carried out together with leading international carbon climate experts, research and consulting companies and researchers together with a group of blockchain practitioners and academics. And I have witnessed a workshop earlier where these two worlds basically came together, and that was a very rich and interesting experience. I learned a lot in a very short time, and I think there's a lot to learn from other experts, and that interaction seems to me very fruitful. And we will conduct stakeholder interactions also as part of the process, and plan that to present preliminary results in November this year here in Bonn. With that, I would like to stop here, and I would just like to say that we are very keen also to get your feedback and your input, and to hear your interest in that project. Here are some email addresses, but I think this interaction is key for this project. And with that, I want to hand over to Stefan, who will talk about track 2.
Just a clarification question. Which countries are on your partner country committee?
Yes, this is ongoing work.
Ah.
Good, thank you very much. We're then coming to the concrete use cases that we're going to work on over the coming 9 months. Just some general remarks to begin with. I work for the Chair of Computational Social Science at ETH Zurich. ETH Zurich is the technical unit of Swiss Federal Institute of Technology. We're mainly concerned about the effects of digitalization on economy and society, but also how to use technology to make our world more sustainable in societal, financial, and environmental terms. And blockchain is just one of the game-changing technologies that we're currently looking at. So the aim of the use cases is really to show that blockchain can contribute to climate change mitigation, and to have a clear idea how this could work in practice. As I already mentioned quickly, the duration of the use cases is 9 months, and then we want to have first results. In 9 months, we're not going to reinvent the world, but we want to have some tangible things to show after these 9 months. These should be demonstrated at COP23. There will be an advisory committee giving feedback to the use cases and their goals and how they achieved it. We could also say that these use cases are going to be funded through Climate Kick. This is what we applied for, and they will be managed by ETH Zurich. The idea is to have proof of concepts that can then be scaled up or serve as a foundation of further developments. But let's come to the first use case, the one use case that's called Carbon Cockpit. This is about easier tracking and reporting of carbon footprints and novel trading methods. Alex is going to get a bit deeper into this specific use case later on, so I directly move on to the next one then. The second use case is called Clean Coin. And in principle, it's just about finding criteria for a clean blockchain. You might have heard there are a lot of energy issues around blockchains, especially linked to consensus mechanisms and mining process for the digital currencies or coins. The goal is to come up with a report that states how would such a clean blockchain need to look like. This use case is managed by South Pole Group and the World Wildlife Foundation. Then the third use case is called LET chain. It's about finding a blockchain solution to incentivize the use of greener commuting means. The deliverable is to develop a software prototype for a decentralized or distributed mobility management program, and that the software will be used by at least one international company headquartered in Liechtenstein. This specific use case is managed by Blockchain Bureau and Life Climate Foundation in Liechtenstein. Next use case is called Power ID. This is a direct peer-to-peer trading system for energy. And the deliverables of this project is to set up a lab-scale prototype incorporating all microgrid functionalities to run peer-to-peer energy markets, including investment functionality, and also allow for usage control. And this use case is managed by our partner team at ETH Zurich, PowerBlocks, the Energy Agency of the Canton of St. Gallen, and Exupery. And last but not least, we have the red chain use case. This is about using blockchain for monitoring, reporting, and verification in reducing emissions from deforestation and forest degradation. And here we have to develop the deliverables to develop a working prototype in Colombia. And the objective is to facilitate the development of reliable and secure inventories, to enable automated monitoring, and to allow for result-based and actionable transactions. Here with this use case we have Quantis and Vic with CleanTech 21 in the driving seat. Last but not least, one note about how we link this at ETH Zurich with some other ongoing communities and that we're working on. One is called Blockchain X. This is a cross-industry blockchain network to elaborate on blockchain fundamentals, draft white papers, and work on proof of concepts. Then we also link the activities to our blockchain and IoT summer school. Students can learn from the best blockchain technology providers and work on concrete use cases. And with the Future ICT 2.0 project, which is a European project, where we develop and promote the so-called Finance 4.0 concept, which is using blockchain, big data, and complexity science to enable the circular and the sharing economy. So these use cases that we produce here, they can be embedded into other projects and visions that we're currently working on. So this is not something that is standing on its own. This is something that can be embedded in many developments in the blockchain and climate-related worlds. This was my intervention. I give the word back then to Nick. Thank you.
Thank you, Stefan. So, unfortunately, Malte Schneider from Climate Kick could not make it to this meeting, so I'm taking over his section on our track 3, which you haven't heard about. You have track 1, track 2. Very briefly to track 3, I mentioned already it's an innovation call out. We reach out to the community and we plan to have different activities in doing so. For example, we'll have so-called ideation workshops where we would have half of the people from the climate field, half of the people from the blockchain field, and we develop certain areas, explore certain areas in more detail in this with these two communities working together. It's been mentioned already that thus far these communities have actually not interacted so well. particularly on the blockchain side, looking over to climate. And I had a few interesting expressions in the last 6 months on this. Everybody thinks, climate is pretty governed by lots of regulations that are completely intransparent. It involves these large global bodies that set centralized rules. So a lot of people from the blockchain community don't really consider the climate space super interesting. So we have a task here to change that. And on the other side, it's been mentioned, the climate folks, many of them look at blockchain as something that is a bit strange. When I was in Marrakesh, a lot of people did not know blockchain, but they did know Bitcoin, and they also immediately knew a couple of examples of how Bitcoin can be abused, so it was quite interesting. If the climate people look at blockchain, there is this issue of mining, so a lot of climate people associate blockchain with a lot of emissions. This does not need to be the case, so the point is we need to actively bring these two communities together, and that's really what the innovation call-out plans. In rough ways, I showed you the timeline already. If you look at the green section, we have a period starting now where we do a first call out for interested parties. We then select a few of those interested parties and start to engage them in sub-phase 2 until COP23. I'll come to the last one on COP23 in a second. What follows then is basically a selection from a lot of different sort of mini use cases into our 2018 set of use cases, where we address again 5, maybe 10 different specific use cases that teams throughout the second year will work on. How it's going to go on from there is still open and will be decided at a later stage. Again, the main message is here. If you want to engage, we want to engage, so let us know how exactly you want to do that, and we'll listen. So, as the last point on the track 3, I'd just like to draw your attention to what we've announced today at our mini press conference at 2 o'clock. We planned, as a first specific call-out action, to have a hackathon, as you call it, during COP23 here. So while some of you will be in the serious halls negotiating, some others will drink lots of Coca-Cola and program all night through. A hackathon is what computer geeks look at as a marathon. You basically sit together and you compete against each other with the best software code. You can do that in a 24-hour non-stop session, or you can do that over a week. The main thing is, if it needs to work, the people who program, they need to know what they should program. So our use cases in 2017 will be one of the bases that we provide them, and then we do a hackathon session that hopefully produces some results that we're going to share as well. And just to repeat it one more time, interact with us, Carbon BC at CleanTech21, or any one of us. Please contact us, let us know. We want to interact with you. And having said that, I'm delighted to hand over to Alex. So Alex, the floor and the clicker is yours.
Thank you. So, first of all, I would like to thank the government of Liechtenstein for the very kind invitation, and also the partners CleanTech21, Infras, ETH Zurich University, and IAI. We at the UNFCCC Secretariat, we recognize the potential of blockchain technology. And I will start my short intervention with a quote from somebody that I had the pleasure to meet last year, Rob Nail, the CEO of Singularity University. So the quote is, since the invention of double-entry bookkeeping in the 7th century, innovation in accounting was limited to tedious process of reconciling ledgers. But now, with the advent of blockchain distributed ledger system, the action of reconciling, along with many other processes categorized as post-trade, can be rendered largely redundant. So, When we talk about blockchain technology, we talk about a database that may be accessed by everyone in the network at any time, anywhere, enabling high levels of trust. So blockchain basically is a technology that creates a high level of transparency within all the network. And its applications are very broad. So I have here from Moody's, I think one of the most important rating agents, they just released recently a report with all their clients, of the rating companies, and from their database of clients, they found over 120 different blockchain initiatives in all different sectors. So here's a table from this report. So you see in financial institutions, for corporates, for governments, or across sector. Just to highlight one that I was amused to see, the government of Colombia has used already blockchain for voting system. So in this last voting for the peace deal that they did, the citizens of Colombia that were living outside Colombia, they could vote through a blockchain-based, blockchain-enabled platform. Another initiative that I want to highlight is an initiative with a Chinese company. The name is Energy Blockchain Lab. In partnership with IBM, they have raised already a couple of millions of dollars to develop a carbon asset management platform in China, and they plan to align this platform with the Chinese ETS to be launched later this year or beginning of next year. So already in the carbon world. Going to the UN world, so you can see the blockchain being used, or at least being investigating the use of several UN agencies. So we have here UNOPS, UNDP, UNICEF, UN Women, UNHCR. They are already investigating the blockchain technology. In fact, they are forming a group of UN agencies that the UNFCCC plans to be part of, to share information about blockchain, the different kinds of blockchain applications. But definitely, the leader within the UN organizations is the UN World Food Programme, with already a project on the ground, which is up and running. There's more than, so basically it's using blockchain to distribute humanitarian aid. And the pilot of this cash-based transfers through blockchain has already more than 10,000 beneficiaries in the country of Jordan. Now, to our context here in the Paris Agreement. Article 10 of the Paris Agreement is a clear call for accelerating, encouraging, and enabling innovation. And blockchain is a clear innovation in the IT world to an effective long-term global response to climate change and also to sustainable development. Now, my last slide, not to take too much of your time, just last month, the UNFCCC Secretariat has partnered with the Gold Standard Foundation to a bigger project. The project will explore the development of standards for sustainable development. But as part of this bigger project, we are also have objectives of testing or identifying ways to use the blockchain technology to make it easier and cheaper for corporations to voluntarily track and report their carbon footprints, their carbon pricing strategies, and SDG actions. The project will also propose ways to use blockchain technology to enable tracking of carbon units between this, the involved corporations in this that would take up this standard. So with that, I thank you all, and I think I give the floor to mirror.
So,
This
just
is the,
one clarification question
Sure.
again. Is this gold standard thing part of your project here or not?
yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I wanted to say. It's the carbon cockpit project that I mentioned in the beginning that he would like. Yeah.
This gold standard.
Sorry, yeah, this is one use case.
We should call them
Yeah.
things now. But...
So, welcome everybody, also on my behalf. My name is Miroslav Polzer. I'm the CEO of the International Association for the Advancement of Innovative Approaches to Global Challenges. It's a civil society organization based in Klagenfurt in Austria, accredited to the... It is, I don't know if this is supported right. Okay, so I have a bit of a problem.
You're sticking with that?
Okay, I will then do it without the presentation. So, our organization is working on youth engagement in climate action. It's International Association for the Advancement of Innovative Approaches to Global Challenges. So these innovative approaches mean that we look on what is missing in the implementation of multilaterally agreed goals. And here we see that for the Paris Agreement, it is crucial that non-state actors get mobilized. As Jörg has said, one of the problems of the Paris Agreement is a lack of ambition, and this lack of ambition can be only overcome when we invest in this enhanced action of non-state actors, and especially if we work with young people. Together with youth representatives, with UN partners and different stakeholders, we have in Marrakesh launched the COP22 call for resources for youth climate action, give youth a chance, where we said that we want to channel resources to youth climate action, and a precondition for having this done is that we develop an information system which gives value to the action that young people can contribute to the Paris Agreement, and that we localize it, document it, crowd evaluate it, and then create a digital asset that can be transferred around with the mindset of an Agenda 2030 marketplace where young people get rewards for certified SDGs impact. We've had on this topic in January in Vienna at the UNIDO, United Nations Industrial Development Organization's premises, a workshop about youth engagement in Agenda 2030, implementation through social entrepreneurship and digital social currencies, and we all there identified blockchain technology as the key enabling technology which helps to really make the connection between young people in their real world situations and these big global problems. And here our Glotcha blockchain for youth climate action use case comes in. We will upload also the concept note of our use case to the side event and exhibits online information system of the UNFCCC. There you can then find more details. But the main idea is that with this blockchain technology, we can give young people's contributions a value. This value can be then rewarded through bonus points and in the long run also with financial incentives, and that there can be a gamification, that young people can create local communities playing this climate action, and that in the second phase this can be developed further in some kind of climate Olympics where non-state actors collect bonus points and compete regarding their climate change contributions on a city level, and Professor Helping from the ETH Zurich is some kind of leader regarding this idea, and we are going to work on this together. And yeah, that's somehow my use case. More details can be then found on the concept note online, and we hope that we can create synergies with the efforts of the Carbon Blockchain Initiative and also with the UNFCCC in the field of non-state actors, enhanced climate action.
Thank you, Miroslav. So that was basically a first quick summary of the blockchain topic. Overall, Carbon BC and the blockchain project in detail. So I'm sure there are no questions now. Everything is clear. In case, if there is a question, it would be now the opportunity. Would you, when answering the question, just name your organization and your name, and then, yeah?
It's just a procedural question. Will the presentations be available online afterwards?
Yes.
Yes, that's the idea of the program, of the project, to really, to really also to share and then to develop a common understanding of that whole.
And then one other question, I guess, Miles Austin. I'm here as a freelance advisor who's currently advising a data aggregation startup. The hackathon, presumably this is all kind of like a open source thing, so the solutions that go in, the stuff that comes out the hackathon is there in the public domain, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, good to know.
Further, yes, please.
Yes, thanks, Axel Michaelova from Perspectives in the University of Zurich. Jörg, thanks for mapping the scene. So now, of course, if I look at the use cases, there is no use case that directly involves the policymakers. Are you trying to, well, of course, Secretariat is doing something with gold standard, but of course this is still voluntary stuff. Are you envisaging to draft, for example, submissions to the NFC process that would request certain rules? Now we have 18 months for the rule setting process that would take into account the results of your project?
Thank you. No, I don't think that we are writing submissions. I see this as a research project, and we will do research, and I think we see this as parallel processes. There is the negotiations track, which is going sometimes faster and sometimes slower, and then there is our research project, and I see our role in having also the liberty to, map out how this 2020 world could look like, map out what the information flows could be that makes sense, and if by some chance then negotiators or participating countries would say, hey, look, this is useful information, we can use this is a strawman proposal, then we would be very happy, but it's not our primary objective.
Good evening, thank you very much for the presentations. My name is Gareth Phillips from the African Development Bank, and I've been talking with colleagues here about the establishment of an adaptation benefit mechanism, which would be a new mechanism, and I'd like to register my interest in looking to see how we could utilise blockchain technology in that mechanism. And sort of related to that, and this is really only a comment, your name, Carbon BC, it kind of belies your interest in trading and markets and so on. And as we've seen in sort of other organisations, I would suggest you change your name to Climate BC, because this is much broader than just carbon. This is about climate.
Thank you, guys.
I made this misfortunate name choice. It's my name. I take this up, and I think it's an excellent input. Thank you very much.
Hello, good evening everyone. My name is Timmy from the Centre for International Governance Innovation in Canada. I'm really interested to hear what you guys are working on. I guess it's more of a comment with respect to the idea that policymakers and the technical guys haven't been in conversation together. Now, what the Center for International Governance Innovation does, we're a think and do research tank in Canada that basically brings people together, and we are having an event in June which is basically this, to bring the policymakers together with the blockchain community. We are looking at how blockchain can be used in international law generally. So climate change is our first case study, but we're looking at other areas of international law. So we're really interested in this and really interested in anyone who is interested to come to our event. We are also going to be at the Consensus in New York next week, where we're having, we're sponsoring that because Canada is one of the leaders in blockchain technology. So please come and talk to me if you want to know more about that, and I have some of our research.
Thank you, Jimmy. Just a quick comment. We also have this dialogue between policymakers and the technical guys. I'm in the negotiations, and these are my technical guys. But what you're doing is fantastic, and we very much like to join forces, as I said in the beginning.
Yeah, also what I mentioned before about blockchain X has a very similar role. This is, at the moment, it's pretty focused on Europe, but in principle it's open for international collaboration there as well. We're not focused on climate or anything like that. We're just like working on cross-industry fundamentals of blockchain technology, for example, e-identity, digital identities, these kind of things. But also we envisaged maybe to do the next workshop on energy, but this is not yet decided. We want to do something that is of use to our members, and that's why. But I think we talked before already, so maybe we're going to collaborate on these things anyway in the future. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lin Chen. I'm also from the Center for International Governance Innovation, and you raised a case use the blockchain in ETS. So I want to know what the contribution for this technology is, especially in ETS. And you mentioned just for MRVs, or do they have any other benefits? That's it.
So now we already going deep in the research agenda, but just quickly maybe strive the topic of ETS. Distributed ledger technology, for example, could play a role in linking ETS to provide a common space for transaction of units. With regard to the other point was MRV, right? We need the blockchain technology it is not the solution for everything. We need to make use of the existing ecosystem, but we can tremendously improve security, accessibility, and transparency. So MRV has still to be done in a way, by measuring it. The blockchain doesn't measure, but the blockchain can take the measured data, and then you can link it to whatever application possible, to taxes, to subsidies, to reductions, and so on. So there's a whole lot of possibilities, opportunities, and this is actually the thing of our research project, and we want to do it with all of you together, actually.
Maybe just one thing to add. I think it's very important to see that we don't think that blockchain chains are the answer to all the problems that there are with the Paris Agreement, with lack of ambition. This cannot be solved by blockchain. I think that's very clear. But we see it as a new approach, as a new tool that can help in many different areas to promote the process of climate action, be it in the mitigation or the adaptation field. And the example with ETS shows, there you have a lot of issues with availability of data, with confidentiality of data in actual ETSs. And I think blockchain can help to overcome some of these barriers to make information available only to certain actors, but provide, for instance, overall summary data for the wider public. So I think it's an interesting instrument to check if this can be useful in the context of ETS MRV2.
I'd like to add a quick comment to that as well. And I think I want to underline what Jörg was saying, that blockchain is not the only solution, and it will not solve some problems if the problems are not in the technology, but they're in the process or the negotiation. So that's one of the reasons why we have structured the project in this way, and why each and every one of us has said that we reach out to you. Because we think that efficient innovation in this field obviously depends on the rules and the rulemaking process. So we would like to establish this ecosystem exactly for the point of being in a position where we can, for others, share information as to what the rules are. And therefore also the support of the Secretariat is very important to us, because it's not only the rules that as they are negotiated, but it's also then the administration of what actually is being done. And we would like to be in between there in order to offer the right basis for innovation to take place. And that is pretty fundamental, I think, to the approach and to bringing innovation that actually then can be used based on the rules that have been negotiated.
Hi everyone, Marion Verre with the Gold Standard Foundation. We're a very proud partner of the Carbon BC project, and we're looking forward to getting started on the carbon cockpit use case. We're also very grateful for your leadership and the leadership of the government of Liechtenstein around those really innovative and high potential issues. The question I have, and Nick and Jörg, I don't know if you have more insights to share on this one. It's interesting to see that the key features of the blockchain technology, the fact that it's being decentralized and that it's taking control away from a center to a network, those key features resonate as being very different to how governments operate today. The objective is to get governments to use that technology going forward for some of their carbon inventories. So even though the technology may be highly compelling, we may face a situation where adoption is limited by the need to change behavior or to shift culture and get governments to give away some of their power and decision making to a decentralized network. Is this, do you see here a potential risk, or do you anticipate that adoption of the technology and the solution by governments may have to work around or take into account such a change in culture and mindset?
Thank you. I think these are this is a very interesting area of questions. Blockchain technology, through its decentralized approach, may be perceived as a danger for some governments. Maybe our Swiss perspective is a bit different, and I think we like very much decentralized approaches. But I think in general this can be a barrier. On the other hand, such a blockchain has also to be put up, to be put in place. So there needs to be also some sort of oversight in putting up the system, in making this operational, and then one needs to translate rules and agreements between countries, has to translate that into a blockchain smart contract or whatever. And I think it's at that interface where governments play a very important role. But the fact that you cannot easily change the blockchain content ex post, and the transparency of the system may be a barrier in some countries. That's something we will very clearly look into. That's a risk for the promotion of that technology.
Yeah, it's very important to see that there are many different forms of blockchains out there. So some people distinguish between public and private blockchains. Others use the words permissioned or unpermissioned blockchains or ledgers, and so there's still a huge area for maneuver there. And what we have to decide on if we install such a process on an international level is what kind of blockchain are we going to use, who is having access to what parts of information on the blockchain, who is like being able to write smart contracts on a blockchain and to decide on the incentive system. So this is still undecided yet, and there are many different possibilities to approach that. So what we usually have in mind is an open public blockchain like Ethereum or the Bitcoin blockchain, but this is not the only solutions that are out there. In principle, blockchain means that we have the possibility now to share a ledger between different actors, and that changes in that ledger are updated simultaneously. So it leads to more transparency and trust. But all the other aspects of it, there is a lot of space for adapting to what countries want.
Yeah, I just want to add a quick note in the sense that yes, I mean, blockchain will bring disruption. It will not only bring disruption, long processes the governments do right now, but it also brings disruption in the private sector. You see, like if you're in the money transfer business right now, that's a huge sort of a new thing coming towards you. And therefore, many industries now, you have tendencies where some players embrace this and some other players try to stay away. And I think it's very similar to other technologies concerning public and private sector, but maybe with this one what is a bit different in this one is that it is really a stepping stone technologically. I mean, very many people call this, sort of on the importance of the internet. So internet technology was as important as blockchain technology is now. So this is a major shift, not just a small shift. So I think everybody will have to adapt a bit, but I'm pretty positive that the net benefits for the developed and the developing world are such that people will recognize them, and governments included. So you have many governments already. We heard some examples. But if you marry in Estonia, you can marry on a blockchain kind of thing, right? So there's many applications already that governments actively undertake. I can also draw attention to a study that the UK government has done on bringing currency digital. They think a couple of GDP points could be gained simply by having a digital currency and not a fiat currency. So a lot of attention is on this topic right now. The key will be that everybody is sort of looking at the glass as half full and seeing the potential, realizing where the dangers are, and then together we find the right solution.
Hi, Marlene English from Frankfurt School of Finance and Management, UNEP Collaboration Center. I wanted to actually align my question with this behavioral change, but the transparency and the trust is such an important issue. And from the case studies also and from the examples, it's, I would say, smaller local networks, and on an international level where you are doing a UNFCCC exchange, such a transparency might also be difficult because you cannot change anything in the blockchain. So if it's there, a deal has to be remade. It has never, the exchange of information and the blockchain building up. Transparency being the source of the trust can also be a barrier to moving forward at all in that sense. And a marriage license is a record that is then saved, but in negotiations and tracking carbon, it might be difficult not only to change behavior, or give away to a decentralized authority, but also to give away that sort of transparency. And how transparent will it be on an international level? From a local level or on a national or international level only?
It's a very good question, and I think that in the end it needs some kind of change in thinking, but you also have to see that today there are like large consortia, for example, consisting of different banks. And banks definitely don't want to share too much information with each other, right? So this is something, again, that can be designed around the need of the participants in a blockchain. Banks are now putting millions into shared ledgers where they can streamline or make more efficient their clearing processes and similar things. So, and they don't want other banks to see how many assets they're holding and how much of which currency or anything like that. You have to look at it from a similar perspective if you talk about climate. In the end, we would all prefer the more transparent solution, but maybe the way there leads through a little bit less transparent solution, just to make people aware that blockchain leads to more efficiency in the end as well, and can achieve this transparency goal step by step. At least that's how I see the process.
I also want to add a little question, a little comment on that. I mean, imagine from 2020 on, 196 countries have to, make happen that transparency platform and start with reporting obligations, and they have to put this data somewhere. And I'm not saying that this is the solution for getting the data together, but if there's something there and it's already tested and it's secure, it's safe, it has maybe some national oversight, we don't know yet, but this is, that's why we come together, to exchange our experiences together with the IT world, and I think there are some solutions outside.
Luigi Carafa, CEDAW Foundation in Barcelona. I work on climate finance, and I have a question for the panel. How could blockchain help mobilizing private investment in low carbon infrastructure? Thanks a lot.
Yeah, I mean, integrating the private sector into the whole process is to a large extent focused, of course, on the climate finance aspect, because with increased transparency, you are able to attract other sources of finance and offer new ways of finance. In addition, using digital currencies as part of it, you can go into microtransactions which, with a low per transaction fee, which could be very attractive for climate finance as well. So to give you one or two quick examples, the use case you've heard, Red Chain on forests, addresses this specifically. We go from a lot per lot basis and check with image recognition technology based on satellite pictures of different types whether a certain use of land is upheld in the period or not. If this is the case, then we can trigger a smart contract that would, for example, allow a donor country to then finance for the lot that we have specifically evaluated and for which we have confirmed that land use is upheld. For that particular lot, you could then trigger finance. So you could vastly improve transparency issues that you have right now, where certain donors don't know where exactly their money ends. Some situations are known where two donors actually finance the same lot and things like that. So in this process, increased transparency and possibilities of doing very small type transactions will open up new financing possibilities. So in our view, this is a key area that could benefit from the whole process that we're doing here.
Yeah, Masamba Choi from UNFCCC Secretariat. I would like to cover two aspects. The first one is this issue of behavioral change. Is there any risk to have actually barrier to the further development of these technologies that will be related to resistance from government and private sector. And I fully agree that this is more about an issue of how do you go about it, and step-by-step approach is the solution. Because what we should keep in mind is that government, they are elected by individuals, and the private sector, their products are bought by customers that are individual. So what is important in my view is to actually work on changing behavior at the individual levels, empowering individuals, and then little by little, government will change. And I used to give always the example of Germany, that is, in my view, a very, very interesting example. I'm not expecting, for example, in Germany, climate policies to change very much based on any change of ruling parties. And why is it like that? It is like that because you have a very strong civil society, people that are quite well aware of what is going on, and will never let any ruling parties, regardless of its color, to change very much the climate policies. And I think this should be the direction of the travel. We need to invest on individuals that will then make policymakers and private sector go in that direction, the direction of enhanced transparency. Because at the end of the day, this is what is, in my view, very important. Now, maybe very quickly on the possible use of blockchain in climate finance toward enhanced climate action or sustainability. I think one important application that I like very much is the further development of crowdfunding. We know that crowdfunding is a very important alternative source of funding, but if you were to track, for example, share or other type of securities, in the current situation, and we are using, let's say, for a company that is crowd-funded, it will be very challenging. But the use of this technology can allow to facilitate the registration of shares and securities for companies that are crowd-funded, and it can allow unlisted company to have access actually to the green bond market to institutional investor and individuals, which is, in my view, a very important point, because one of the key barriers that could prevent the implementation of the Paris Agreement and Agenda 2030 is the availability of finance. So whatever can be done to support the further development of flow of finance towards sustainable activities is quite good for the Paris Agreement and Agenda 2030.
Thank you. Okay, take one more question.
Thank you. Train William from the UNFCCC Secretary as well. I thought to make a contribution by giving a little bit of a detail regarding what Alex already mentioned about this Chinese energy blockchain labs, because they seem to be the very first clean energy, green finance oriented company promoting the use of blockchain technology. So they're set up in China, and in the recent month they have been very active in working with a wide range of companies and governmental bodies to promote the use of blockchain, right? So I'll just briefly share what I have been observing them doing platform building, and they are also working on the development of smart contracts, so digitizing the Chinese CCR methodologies as an example. So according to their experience, you could literally save up to 80% of the project development time and money using blockchain as compared to the traditional type of doing PDD, validation, registration, etc., etc., etc. Right? And then on a higher level, on policy level, they are working with the central government bodies like the Chinese Central Bank. They have a specialized committee on green finance to put in place system and a regulatory framework that is conducive to more use of blockchain technology. Then a few of their experiences and lessons learned so far. The first being the technology. I think one of our panelists also mentioned about being not very mature, so it's not well taken by some regulatory bodies, for example, and then you have the policy uncertainty, because they want to serve the Chinese carbon market, and there's so much uncertainty there, right? And then another issue for the regulators seems to be they've already invested tons and tons of money into building the existing system. I'm referring to the registry, for example. And now you are bringing in something that you're not very sure about, and you want to replace it. So it seems to be quite a challenge for them. Thank you.
We don't want to replace anything. It's just we want to highlight the opportunities out there. Okay.
They will probably be one of your partners to collaborate with for the research project.
Yeah, that would be great. Okay, one more.
Yeah, this is perhaps a direct response to what my colleague just said. I'm Yukratna from India. I'm currently an undergraduate student studying IT as one of my minors and aware of blockchain as one of my projects done previous semester. So I do understand your concern that we are developing something new, but let's understand that the previous mechanisms like the CDM, for example, haven't been successful either when we talk about climate finance. So it does make sense to explore new areas for that matter, and we know that there are issues with security when it comes to blockchain, but there also have been constant efforts to resolve them. And like Bitcoin is already, I mean, we've seen Bitcoin works, so I do believe that blockchain can work if it is given proper research and proper intellectual capacity is spent on developing it, and it's at the same time it's a good merger of IT working with the policy on a policy level, and which is a good merger. So yeah.
Thank you very much. Yeah, and we share some thoughts here. I would suggest before I would invite you to an apéro. I hope it's prepared. I didn't want to close that without saying thank you to our co-organizers, Miroslav Polzer from the IAAI from Klagenfurt, and Stefan Klauser from the ETH Zurich, and the government of Liechtenstein. We are the three partners organizing the side event. And now I want to thank you everyone that came here, even though it's a late hour and it was a long day. But I invite you to have a drink with us and to maybe further engage in this discussion. I can, yeah. Then a quick note to Nick, yes.
No, to Sven.
Yeah, to Jörg.
Yeah, just to mention, we talked about partner countries participating here, and we can say that Switzerland plans to support this, and we are very happy. This is a very news, and we hope that this takes off nicely now with that support. And of course, we thank the government of Liechtenstein and other partners to do this. Thank you very much.
And I'm convinced they are meant to come. Okay, thank you everyone, and yeah, please.